I would like to start by showing you the three types of insulin syringe that I usually use to administer toxin to clients. There are three variations: a 0.3 ml version, a 0.5 ml version, and a 1 ml version. Now, the 0.3 ml version I will leave for another time. It has a very small amount that can be injected, and it is only useful really for very small, precise injections, as the distance between the markers is larger. So I'm going to start by showing you the 0.5 and 1 ml versions. 1 ml insulin syringe comes with a needle that is 12.7 millimeters long and a 29 gauge in width. The 0.5 ml option also comes with a 12.7 millimeter long needle and also has a 29 gauge width. However, there is a variation of the 0.5 ml insulin syringe that comes with a shorter 8 millimeter needle and also a finer 30 gauge caliber. So if you want to cause minimal discomfort and not penetrate too deep, then the 0.5 ml syringe with an 8 millimeter needle and the finer 30 gauge caliber is recommended. If you need to penetrate structures that are a little bit deeper, for example, if we are doing a master injection, then we may need to use the 12.7 millimeter option. The 1 ml syringe is useful as well, but very often the problem here is that the accuracy of the injection is affected the larger syringe you use. There also exists a 0.3 milliliter insulin syringe. That syringe also has 8 millimeter length needle and a fine 30 gauge caliber. This is quite useful for when we are injecting very small amounts of toxin. When we inject small amounts of toxin, we should use a smaller syringe for greater accuracy. For the sake of today's tutorial, I'm going to show you the 0.5 ml and 1 ml syringe in more detail, but do bear in mind, if you are starting to inject areas on the lower face where smaller amounts of toxin are needed in a precise way, then you may wish to order in some 0.3 milliliter, 8 millimeter needle, 30 gauge insulin syringes. So here we have the 1 ml insulin syringe, and if I uncap it, as you can see, it has a reasonably long 12.7 millimeter needle, and this is a 29 gauge needle. Now, the smaller the gauge of the needle in number form means that it will hold its edge better on repeat punctures of the skin. Botox injection necessitates repeat punctures of the skin. After a while, even a 29 gauge or and definitely a 30 gauge needle will lose its edge. If you continue using the same needle for a longer period of time, then the client will feel more discomfort. As a result, my practice is to change syringe once one area is complete, hence preserving the edge of the needle and minimizing discomfort to the client. If we move now to the 0.5 ml syringe, you can see this also has the same needle, but on a smaller syringe. So the depth of penetration is the same as the 1 ml syringe, and the caliber of the needle, 29 gauge, is also the same. The graduations are, however, smaller, and as a result, you can have finer control over the volume that you are injecting with this syringe. Finally, let's show you the variant of the 0.5 ml syringe with the small needle. As you can see, this one has a short, stubby 8mm needle. Now, I find this useful when injecting, for example, around the eye in the crow's feet, because the limited length of the needle allows me to more precisely control and make sure I do not penetrate too deep in areas where the muscle lies quite superficial to the underside of the skin. The calibration is the same as the other 0.5 ml needle, so in terms of measurement of your dosing, it doesn't change, but it's more accurate a tool and more safe a tool to work around delicate areas such as the crow's feet. Here we have the 3 botulinum toxin type A variants that are available in the UK. First of all, we have Mertz toxin, Bocouture, and that is available in a 100-unit vial. Allergan make Botox, which is a trade name, even though we often use it to refer to botulinum toxin type A in general. And this also comes in a 100-unit vial. Galderma manufactures something called Azzalure, and Azzalure is a toxin that is measured in something called Spaywood units. Now, Azzalure is dispensed as 2 bottles of 125 Spaywood units. That is 250 Spaywood units in total. Now, 250 Spaywood units is equivalent to 100 units of Allergan's Botox and 100 units of Bocouture. Now, as you can see, that equates to a factor of 2.5 Spaywood units for 1 unit of Botox or 1 unit of Mertz's Bocouture. This is pretty much the multiplication factor I would expect someone to use if they were using Spaywood units instead of Botox or Mertz Bocouture. So here we have Allergan's toxin, Botox, as I'm sure most of you are familiar with. It contains 100 units of the actual toxin itself. It does actually come in a smaller 50-unit format, but in our clinic we always order it in the 100-unit format. I'm going to open the box to show you the appearance of the actual vial itself. Here we go. We have the 100-unit toxin vial. Now this, if we have a look, has a thin layer of the toxin and excipients basically stuck to the bottom in a ring shape. Very often, many people look at the vial and think, there's not much in that vial. Is there actually anything in the vial? This is a typical scenario with a Botox vial, so please don't send them back to the manufacturer saying, you've sent me empty vials. That is not the case. The excipients of Botox are sodium chloride and human albumin. This is worth considering if you are going to be injecting someone who has issues with human blood products. So now we are going to reconstitute Allergan Botox 100-unit vial. I'm going to reconstitute with bacteriostatic saline, so 0.9% sodium chloride bacteriostatic. This comes in 30 ml vials and is the best way to reconstitute any botulinum toxin type A product. We're going to remove the top of the glass bottle, and I use a 2.5 ml syringe and a 21 gauge green needle. With this, I shall withdraw 2.5 mils of bacteriostatic saline from the bacteriostatic saline vial, and also we use a isopropyl alcohol wipe to swab the tops of both vials. Before I put anything into the vial, I break the seal of the vial with the needle itself. What you will now hear is a hiss. This hiss, first of all, reassures us that this vial hasn't been tampered with, and the hiss itself was air from the atmosphere going into the vial. The vial now is at atmospheric pressure. The reason why I do this is to prevent the saline being sucked rapidly into the vial and causing a large amount of foam to be formed. Now I shall withdraw 2.5 mils of bacteriostatic saline, as so. Let's see, that's 2.5 mils, yeah, lovely. And then I shall gently introduce this into the vial. Ooh, we're having... There we go. And place the needle against the edge of the glass vial and gently and in a controlled fashion run the saline into the vial. Now, remember, there was the vacuum that had been filled with air. So now we've put 2.5 mils of saline on top of the atmospheric pressure in the vial. If I let go of the plunger, as you can see, it automatically retracts the solution back into the vial. That is not what we want. We want to keep the solution in the vial. So I keep my finger on my thumb pressed on the plunger. If I was to break the needle and the syringe now, Botox in solution would jet out against the wall, and we don't want that either. So the way of making sure that the toxin remains in the vial is by keeping the thumb pressed firmly down on the plunger and retracting the whole needle and syringe in one go from the vial, leaving our solution of Botox nicely intact inside the vial. So now we have 100 units in 2.5 mils of saline. 100 units in 2.5 mils of saline is compatible with 20 units in 0.5 mils of saline, 20 units of Botox in the 0.5 mil syringe. This equates to 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20 units of Botox. So 2 units per 0.05 mil graduation. Now for the reconstitution of the 100 unit Bocouture vial. In much the same way as with the Allergan Botox product, we're going to use bacteriostatic saline again for reconstitution. The Bocouture vial comes in 100 unit format as such. Let me just remove the packaging and reveal the vial. Here we have 100 units of Bocouture. This contains the toxin along with excipients of human albumin and sucrose. So once again, we have to pay attention to people who may be averse to human blood product usage. The powder in the Bocouture vial is actually much more visible due to the way that it has been packaged. So here you can have what looks like a nugget of white powder versus the Allergan vial, which was just a fine ring of white powder at the base. In reconstitution terms, we'll remove the blue stopper. Again, I shall take a 21 gauge needle and we shall swab both the vial of saline and the vial of toxin. With the Bocouture vial, again, I shall remove the vacuum. You hear that hiss? Two things can be confirmed. Obviously, the vial hasn't been tampered with, and now you have allowed the contents of the vial to come to atmospheric pressure. We take our 2.5 ml syringe, place the needle on the syringe, and again draw back 2.5 mils of bacteriostatic saline. Once this is done, I shall introduce the saline again into the vial. As you can see, there's no vacuum, so the saline doesn't automatically jet into the vial. But once again, when we deliver the 2.5 mils of saline gently into the vial, should we decide to release the plunger of the syringe, it will automatically fill with the solution due to the fact that there is now positive pressure in the vial. So in order to avoid this loss or inadvertent loss of toxin, we shall push it all back in and keep the thumb firmly down on the plunger and retract the whole apparatus from the vial. You can see there's a tiny little squirt there of toxin as we remove the needle, but not really any significant amount. And now we have 2.5 mils of bacteriostatic saline and 100 units of Bocouture in that 2.5 mils. Much the same as the Allergan Botox, this gives us, when we withdraw 0.5 mils of the solution, another 20 units of Bocouture in this syringe. So going as we did before, we have 2 units per 0.05 mils. So this, if we were to count down the graduations, has 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20 units of Bocouture. Now for the reconstitution of Azzalure. Azzalure is a toxin that is measured in Speyward units, or SU. The Azzalure box comes as shown, and inside that box are 2 vials of toxin. Each of these vials contains 125 Speyward units of toxin. The total amount, therefore, here is 250 Speyward units of toxin. 250 units, Speyward units of toxin is equivalent to 100 units of Botox or 100 units of Bocouture. So effectively, Azzalure has packaged the equivalent amount in its pack as 100 units of Botox and 100 units of Bocouture. So all three boxes that I have just shown you are equivalents in a way. Now, as you can see, the Azzalure vial has a white powdery residue at the bottom. This is the toxin, but also human albumin and also lactose monohydrate, which are the other two excipients. So again, caution with people who have adversity to human blood products. If we uncap the vial, this time due to the smaller size of the vial, I use a 25 gauge needle, and likewise the isopropyl alcohol is used to clean the top of the vial and the top of the bacteriostatic vial. Once again, we perform our exercise of pressure release. Smaller hiss, obviously, due to the smaller needle and the smaller bottle. Now, Azzalure comes packaged with these nice green syringes. And these are specially calibrated syringes to make the measurement of Spaywood units a lot easier. So if you use the syringe that comes with the Azzalure vials, it is in fact a 1 ml syringe. But as you can see, if you zoom in on this, and I remove the plunger, it has a large bar marking at 0.63 mils. What's that effectively equating to? Well, when we reconstitute 125 Spaywood units of Azzalure with 0.63 mils of bacteriostatic saline, that equates to 10 Spaywood units of Azzalure per 0.05 mils. Very kindly, Azzalure syringes come marked already in Spaywood units as well. So, if I am to follow the instructions recommended by Galderma and Azzalure, if I draw up the 0.6 mils of bacteriostatic saline as such, and now we place that in the Azzalure vial, we now have 125 Spaywood units of Azzalure in the 0.63 mils of bacteriostatic saline, equating to 10 Spaywood units per 0.05 mils of saline.